Marilyn Monroe, the fascinating life of a pop icon. Marilyn Monroe was an American actress and one of the most popular sex symbols of the 1950s and 1960s. Long after her untimely passing, Marilyn Monroe remains a significant icon of popular culture. In 1999, the American Film Institute listed her sixth on its ranking of the most important female Marilyn Monroe, the fascinating life of a pop icon. Marilyn Monroe was an American actress and one of the most popular sex symbols of the 1950s and 1960s. Long after her untimely passing, Marilyn Monroe remains a significant icon of popular culture. In 1999, the American Film Institute listed her sixth on its ranking of the most important female screen icons from the golden age of Hollywood. Monroe was a center-stage actress for an entire decade, and her films brought in $600 million equivalent to $2 billion in 2023. Growing up as Norma Jean. Norma Jean was born to Gladys Pearl Baker and her illicit lover, Stanley Gifford. As Gladys was married to Martin Edward Mortensen, Norma Jean received his surname. Gladys suffered a mental breakdown in January 1934 and was given the diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia. As a result, she was admitted to a mental health facility, and because of her absence, Norma Jean was made a ward of the state. Grace Goddard, a friend of Gladys, assumed control of Norma Jean and her mother's businesses. Goddard sent Norma to an orphanage in 1935. In the following 4 years, Norma Jean's residential arrangements saw several changes. She lived with different foster families, distant relatives, and family friends. She was even sexually assaulted by one of her foster parents. The orphanage personnel liked Norma Jean, and they thought she would thrive in a real family setting. This made Grace Goddard agree to be the girl's legal guardian. However, this did not work out because Owen Goddard, Grace's husband, abused Norma Jean. Once more, Jean had to move from house to house, taking advantage of the kindness of her friends and family members in Los Angeles who let her stay with them temporarily. Norma Jean's foster parents frequently sent her to the movies to get the young girl out of their way, and with every trip she spent in front of the big screen, her goals and aspirations expanded. In 1938, while Jean was a high school student, she moved in with Grace's Aunt Anna Lower, finding a place to call home. Although Jean was an average pupil overall, she was a gifted writer who wrote with assiduity for the school's newspaper. In 1942, Grace's husband was sent to West Virginia by his employer. Grace, still Norma Jean's legal guardian, was unable to legally remove her from the state, so they decided to arrange for the 16-year-old to marry James Dougherty, a neighbor who was 21 years old. After the wedding, Norma Jean stopped attending classes and became a housewife. She felt out of place with Dougherty and was bored by their relationship. When Dougherty was sent to fight in the Pacific in April 1944, Norma Jean relocated to live with her husband's parents and, shortly after, began working at the Radioplane Company. There, she met David Conover, a photographer assigned by the U.S. Army Air Forces. He was asked to be there on behalf of the 1st Motion Pictures Unit to take photos of female employees in order to boost morale. Jean left her job at the factory in 1945 and started posing for Conover and his pals. She then relocated by herself and accepted a contract with the Blue Book Agency, disregarding her stationed husband. She mostly appeared in commercials and men's publications, since the agency thought her body was better suited for pin-up photography than high-fashion modeling. She bleached her hair blonde and flattened it to make herself more marketable. She became one of the agency's most determined and driven models. By 1946, her image was featured on 33 cover pages of various magazines. While working as a model, she sometimes used the alias Jean Norman. In 1946, Norma Jean saw herself signing yet another contract through the agency's proprietor, but this time it was with an acting agency. After failing a screen test at Paramount Pictures, she was granted a test by 20th Century Fox executive Ben Lyon. Jean was given a common contract with a stipulated duration of 6 months by producer Darryl F. Zanuck in order to keep her away from RKO Pictures, a rival company that was interested in signing her. Together with Ben Lyon, Norma created her iconic pseudonym. Marilyn Monroe was born. She went on to separate from Doherty, who strongly disapproved of her work, in September 1946. Becoming Marilyn Monroe. During her initial semester at Fox, Monroe learned to dance and sing. In 1947, she received her very first roles, beginning with Dangerous Years. Her enrollment in the Actors Laboratory Theater, an acting school that teaches the various techniques and in-depth skills required for performing in front of a camera and interacting with the other actors while in character, was also arranged by the studio. Fox would not extend Monroe's contract when the first one ended because, despite her excitement, Monroe's acting coaches believed that she was too timid and frightened to pursue a career in acting. Monroe went back to modeling while working odd jobs from time to time at various film studios. For example, she worked as a dancing pacer who stayed behind the lead actors in musicals to keep them on cue. Monroe persisted in her studies at the Actors Laboratory Theater. The play Glamour Preferred, in which she was able to land a minor part, was canceled after only a few performances. But Monroe continued networking by visiting producers' offices, making friends with tabloid columnists, and hosting powerful men at studio events. Additionally, Monroe befriended and started a causal affair with Joseph M. Schenck, a Fox executive who had a friendly connection with Harry Cohn, the chief executive of Columbia Pictures. Schenck influenced him to hire Marilyn in 1948. Rita Hayworth served as the inspiration for Monroe's style at Columbia Pictures when her hair was dyed platinum blonde. Marilyn started training with Natasha Lytis, the studio's principal acting coach, who would serve as her role model until 1955. Monroe only made one movie while working at the company, the small-scale musical Ladies of the Chorus, where she played a chorus girl who was wooed by a rich guy. Unfortunately, the film was a flop at the box office when it came out in 1948. Monroe went back to modeling once her deal with Columbia Pictures expired. She posed for images used in calendars and ads. She felt at ease with nudity and did not hesitate to accept any role that required her to strip in front of the camera, despite the traditional and conservative attitudes of the time. Monroe met Johnny Hyde, the vice president of the William Morris Agency, and became his mistress and protege. As a result of their relationship, Monroe was able to get tiny parts in a number of films, including the universally praised All About Eve, 1950, and The Asphalt Jungle, 1950. Despite having a brief amount of screen time, Monroe was finally recognized as a genuine actor thanks to her appearance in The Asphalt Jungle. Johnny Hyde secured a 7-year deal with 20th Century Fox for Monroe in December 1950. Only a few days after orchestrating this significant break for Monroe, Hyde passed away from a heart attack, leaving Monroe heartbroken and alone. Monroe played minor parts in 3 partially successful Fox comedies in 1951. She was nonetheless praised by esteemed media like the Los Angeles Daily News and the New York Times, who called her one of the most promising emerging actors. Her following among viewers was also expanding. Every week, she got tens of thousands of letters from fans. Marilyn was also acknowledged by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association as the finest young box office icon of 1952. Later that year, she began a widely documented relationship with Joe DiMaggio, who was among the most well-known athletes of the time. Scandal turns to opportunity. Marilyn announced to the public that she posed naked for a calendar back in 1949. The studio had learned about the images and, in consultation with Monroe, determined that, in order to protect her budding career, it was best to acknowledge the session while emphasizing the fact that Monroe was in financial ruin at the time. The tactic helped her gain popularity, which meant she was now given leading roles. Following the controversy, Monroe appeared on the covers of several high-profile magazines and newspapers. In close proximity to the scandalous revelation, her movies Clash by Night, Don't Bother to Knock, and We're Not Married came out. Marilyn wanted to show off more of her acting talent despite her newfound reputation as a sex icon. Her recent performances, particularly Don't Bother to Knock, got favorable reviews. She had exceptional delivery and interpretation skills that backed up her good looks. Monroe started being typecast. She played a foolish, juvenile blonde office assistant in Monkey Business, alongside Cary Grant. Nevertheless, throughout 1952, Monroe used media stunts to secure her position as a sex bomb. She allegedly told a gossip journalist that she typically didn't wear pants when wearing a skimpy outfit when she performed as the Grand Marshal of the Miss America pageant procession. Monroe developed a track record for being challenging to deal with during this time. The reputation would only become worse as her professional life proceeded. She frequently arrived behind schedule or did not arrive at all, forgot her lines, and required many takes before she was happy with how she performed. Although Monroe was honing her skill, the filming crew painted this as scandalous behavior. The rest of this video will be shown in Part 2 video. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.